Hi, how you doing there? Greetings. Hey. Growing up, even when I was incredibly young, I knew that there were countless of civilizations out there. And even also, too, at a very early age, I could not stand the tinfoil hat, wackadoodle nonsense documentaries about UFOs. Of course, UFO just means unidentified flying object. That doesn't actually discern whether it's terrestrial or extraterrestrial. Speculating about how many civilizations have visited this backwards, troglodytic, knuckle-dragging bunch of bipedal species is pure speculation. It's certainly not conducive to either intelligence, and it doesn't speak well of retroductive thought analysis. So I'd like to make this two-part, talk about actually the field propulsion tech that actually powers these. I won't speculate as to the super high energy power source that does power them, but the field propulsion tech, as far as following the right-hand rule, is rather logical. But the important thing, and I always like to discuss things that no one else is discussing, especially if it's of great importance, the actual danger of these craft. And I'm not actually talking about the dangers of high energy fields and being around them on the outside of the craft, which apparently appears to not only be validated, but also too hyperlogical. I got a monster magnet in the basement at 6 inches by 2 inches, and even experimenting over top of that thing for more than 10 minutes is like, I don't know, snorting caffeine or something. It will keep you awake for 3 days. That's actually due to cryptochromes and human eyes and nose, and it's kind of like taking a bunch of caffeine pills. Not that I ever really did that. I certainly know the effects of caffeine, obviously. As far as these craft or vectored acceleration, first I'd like to state something that I've said many countless times. The correct word would be conjuring, however that kind of throws back to Harry Potter nonsense and whatnot, but no AC generator actually generates power. If the input is from solar, doesn't count. That's actually direct energy to energy conversion, like hydroelectric or wind or any other form of kinetic input. There is no transference from one kinetic power to the manifestation of electricity, like the Hoover Dam or any of the giant wind generating power plants that are on the top of those 130-kilometer poles. Some of them are actually higher than that. They actually manifest power. But manifestation is really an incorrect word. They're actually conjuring power out of the ether. They're specifically arch forms. So specifically on these craft, there is a super high energy power cell that is a specific arch form that human beings would actually call free energy. But the vectored acceleration, like the black spot on the 1,000-plus supercell videos that I've actually posted, you can actually see the acceleration vector in the black spot that these destructive magnetic vectors actually take towards the plane of inertia or at counter space. Everything obviously operates off of the right-hand rule in the universe. I kind of find it quite odd that people would like me to make more videos about the right-hand rule. There are easily 1 million videos and 1 million different web pages dedicated to explaining the right-hand rule, where if you know the current, you know the vector of the energy, and then you know the field strength. And the right-hand rule is rather simple, but discussing something that's been explained accurately 1 billion different times is not important, so I suggest you look up the right-hand rule. But everything in the universe does operate off of the right-hand rule. That being the case, you can create an acceleration vector magnitudes above the fall towards a mass. Say you take any craft as it's accelerated towards the Earth. You can actually, by employing the right-hand rule, which requires, I've known, even at an early age, requires an enormous amount of power. Inverse polarity, for example, creates a low-pressure vector 90 degrees to the polarities that are like on like, for example. Acceleration vector, of course, is destructive magnetic interference. Not constructive, but destructive magnetic interference. Constructive interference of magnetism, of course, is deceleration or braking. You can actually look up, I think there's at least 1,000 YouTube videos that will show you ultra high Gauss. I think they're like above 3 Tesla. 3 Tesla, or are they 4.5 Tesla or 3 Tesla? Just type in magnetic levitation of frogs or magnetic levitation of strawberries. These are high Tesla fields. 99.9% of humanity is incredibly confused. When they think of magnetic, they're either thinking of magnets, which of course is a point source field of an object which is qualitative, not quantitative, or they're incorrectly thinking of something that is ferromagnetic, kind of like two magnets or a magnet and iron, for example, or lodestones. But everything in the universe is magnetoreactive, whether it's paramagnetic, ferromagnetic, or diamagnetic. Everything is magnetoreactive. I got countless videos from years ago experimenting with high Tesla magnetic fields to show you that bismuth, which is the universe's most diamagnetic, since it is the most diamagnetic, that by definition means it is the most dielectric element, is still magnetoaccelerative at the center of a magnet, because people are confused about the magnetic field. They think there's a magnetic field around a magnet, which there is, but that's less than half the story. Most of it is destructive magnetic interference, or the hyperbolidal geometry of the vector of acceleration. This would be important actually discussing something here really simply. If you actually take a look at one of these lobes and turn it upside down, it's bell-shaped. I think you know where I'm going with on this one. So look up levitated frogs or levitated strawberries and high Gaussian magnetic fields. Any acceleration, of course, any acceleration vector greater or inverse to the vector of acceleration is, of course, necessitatively and logically so, your travel vector. Die Glocke auf Deutsch in German. You could look it up. It's called a bell chamber. Is vectored magnetism. I've got a bunch of, I should have brought them in these videos, but that doesn't show you anything showing you pyramidal shaped magnets. They could actually be conical instead of pyramidal. I mean, pyramidal is either three-faceted or four-faceted conical. A conical and a pyramid, there's really no difference there as far as field geometry. And that's incredibly important. A lot of these craft, of course, are inverse saucer-shaped, for example, but the inverse of a saucer is just an upside-down vortex, and a vortex, of course, is half of a hyperboloid, or the acceleration vector towards the plane of inertia. The one and only time that I know of that you can accurately, empirically, logically, and succinctly make objective statements about pyramid power, as much as the New Agers and the tinfoil hatters love to talk about, is something that is actually demonstrably real and testable with a Gauss meter, is pyramidal-shaped magnets, where it actually forces the dielectric or magnetic flux, at the tip to extremely high pressures. Like those, I've got one stuck on the wall there. I got like 6 of them. They're pyramid-shaped magnets. My buddy down in Alabama used to be the largest seller of magnets in the United States. He's under Super Magnet Man, and his name is George Mizell. I forgot his name. He's down in Alabama. He actually specifically ordered those from China, neodymium iron borons that are shaped like pyramids for scientific testing. In other words, it actually focuses magnetic flux to extremely high density. Same difference as the cone on the end of a fire hose, of a fireman's fire hose, is actually shaped like a cone. It would actually take ultra-high pressure water and take it to extremely high pressures. It actually exits the nozzle, so you could shoot the water up high. This does the same thing to magnetic flux. These bell-chambered craft, most of which, of course, most of them are not bell-chambered. However, the chamber inside of some of these tic-tac and odd ball-shaped craft, which are probably MIC, 99% or somewhere right around there are these MIC craft, military-industrial complex craft. What percentage of those are backwards engineered from extraterrestrial? We don't know. I surmise extremely few, if maybe 1 or 2, extraterrestrials have actually visited this world to look at the hairless troglodytic monkeys and what they are doing and or not doing. So these traditional saucer-shaped UFOs are just an upside-down vortex, which of course is hyperlogical. I wanted to actually mention something about the vectored craft, that these are directable. They've been talk of. And by the way, recently, you notice the stuff, like I think it was a year ago, the Pentagon released some information about UFOs. And they said, well, we kind of admit there's, I don't know what they say, like 10% of these we don't know have any idea what they are. They knew what they are, of course. But they imply that they're alien, and this is exactly what they want. We're quickly getting to the danger of these craft and what they actually mean, because it has a lot to do with hope and faith and how you can actually destroy society and make them susceptible to your will. Religion is doubted. I mean, if people start to doubt, our primitive belief systems, and I don't care what people believe in, I'm not interested in having a discussion on that. But once you start admitting to countless other cultures, and where people actually working a psyop on you, then, there's all these craft, and all of a sudden, there have been a lot of disclosures from credible government entities. One was, I forget the guy, it just happened like less than a week ago. Oh, he was on the inside, and they got proof he was on the inside, so all his creds check out. It's like, if anybody would know, this guy would know, and I think he said something like, 12 different alien species at least, and there's all these craft, and, a lot of these are backwards engineered from these aliens that were either capture their craft from crashes and are backwards engineered. What the government keeps pointing at, they want you to believe is that, the aliens are out there, which is fine. They want you to believe that it actually serves a purpose for them. But they definitely don't want you thinking or hinting at that, and I don't care about what money was spent on. People think our taxpayer dollars goes to all this nefarious stuff, and a lot of it does. However, nearly all taxpayer money actually goes to paying off the interest on the national debt every year. There's actually a government, and then there's the deep state government, and this is not my opinion, this is a fact, and there is a shadow government. The shadow government through the MIC, the military-industrial complex, and black projects are either backwards engineering or producing these craft. Of course, we want to keep these secrets from other hostile governments. This is true, but it actually serves a great purpose against our own people of this government, the United States, for example. And that old phrase, treat them like mushrooms, feed them poop and keep them in the dark. This works brilliantly. If you can actually cause people to doubt their faith, you can really destabilize a lot of society. If everybody's sitting at home playing games, they no longer congregate together, and they no longer have any faith. You've run the brilliant psyop. Everybody is a spineless coward and a D-bag now, essentially. Everybody's sitting at home, working from home, playing video games. They don't have any faith anymore. I'll point out to you, how do you think Afghanistan, yes, we supplied Afghanistan. They even made a brilliant movie about it called Charlie Wilson's War. It's based on the true story of Charlie Wilson, Congressman Charlie Wilson. Everybody should actually see it. We obviously supplied them with a lot of military tech, including Stingers, but how do you think Afghanistan defeated Russia when they had nothing but a bunch of mules and their faith? I know the Russians quite well. I get along great with the Russians, but the Russians, by and large, are extremely faithless people. Far, far more important than any sort of super advanced military hardware is having faith and communion with your fellow city dwellers or country dwellers or whatever you want to apply to Afghanistan, for example. Just one example among countless. No faith, no hope equals exactly what the government wants, which is no resistance at all. This slow drip, drip, drip of supposed UFO leaks. Yeah, there's aliens. I mean, we don't know what these craft are. Here we got Navy chasing these craft. To be sure, with about near 100% probability, that wonderful Navy craft, of which in the negative image FLIR, I think it was negative image FLIR, forward-looking infrared, or was it infrared? You could actually see the electrostatic corona around the craft, and as the craft changed vectors, so did the vector. You could actually see it. It was not one entity of a corona around something. You could actually see the vectors of electrostatic corona actually change. So these are directable craft operating off of the right-hand rule, which have super, super high power energy source, operating off of the right-hand rule. Yeah. You're bell-shaped. Most of these are bell-shaped for a reason. And the ones that are not bell-shaped, they specifically have to have a bell-shaped magnetic vector where they actually create an acceleration greater than that of the acceleration towards this Earth to vector themselves in any direction that they so choose. It's really quite brilliant. They're very simple, but I don't know, obviously, nor do I pretend to know what super high energy source this is. But specifically, since no AC generator actually generates power, they actually conjure power, and I know the implications behind the word conjure. We could say manifest power, that there has to be a specific geometry which actually conjures a power out of the ether itself to manifest for creating super high energy fields for directed vectored acceleration away from, of course, directly falling dead out of the sky. This, of course, is field propulsion tech. What we have now is basically no different than Stone Age unibrow troglodyte power, where we actually have gas or scramjet or liquid oxygen, liquid hydrogen, solid propellant. All of this is explosion tech. It's not field propulsion tech. So what the government's doing is making it about aliens rather than the MIC and the government, the military-industrial complex. They're perfectly happy for you to reject your faith and your unity, because with faith there is hope. With unity there is hope. If you erase the idea that, we're somehow special in the universe, which is completely ridiculously laughable. It's just, you can't look out there like the darkest spot of the night sky. We can see millions of galaxies. Even our galaxy alone has goodness knows how many thousands of other intelligent civilizations on it. Speculation, who knows? But a lot. A lot. There's this enormous galaxy with a gazillion stars and a billion trillion other galaxies out there. Oh, but there's only life here. You really have to be a unibrow troglodyte to believe something that stupid. But to believe that for unevolved humans is to reject their faith and reject community of faith, and therein hope. That's the one thing that the government would absolutely love. They want a bunch of spineless, hopeless, faithless lemmings to control. They would be perfectly happy for us to believe in aliens. Of course, aliens do exist, but engendering that idea certainly is to their great benefit. There probably have only been one to maybe a few craft that have crash landed that we've obviously backwards engineered. It's field propulsion tech. We can call it anti-gravity all we like, but all it does is operate off of the right-hand rule. The only great curiosity is what sort of super major, super powerful power source we're using to conjure enormous amounts of power. But most of these are bell-shaped craft for the same reason. The one and only time in this entire world, I can tell you with 100%, 1,000% certainty, because medical institutions order these pyramid-shaped magnets from George Mizell, Super Magnet Man on YouTube, by the way, a guy that I know, is because they work and they're actually useful for testing, because it actually focuses magnetic flux to a point. The only thing a pyramid is an upside-down hyperboloid, half of a hyperboloid. That's all a vortex is either. I actually have this upside down. You take half of a hyperboloid and make a vortex out of it. That's all a vortex is, too, is a half of a hyperboloid. Specifically, the conjugate field geometry of the entire universe. So if you have a vectored half of a hyperboloid or a vectored vortex with enormous amounts of power, then you're able to operate the right-hand rule and accelerate in any vector towards the normal accelerative vector towards the Earth, obviously, the vector of normal acceleration, like dropping a rock or anything else, of course. All of this is designed by our military to weaken us. We're not looking at, you don't want to see what's going on over here in Hand B. You distract human beings with the slow leak and drip, drip, drip of alien spacecraft. And to be sure, I mean, there are patches. There are black patches operated by Skunk Works. In Latin, I think it says, if I could tell you, but then I'd have to kill you. These are supposedly the patches of the super advanced, basically Delta Force version aircraft pilots of these field propulsion tech. Kind of a brilliant patch. I've actually posted pictures of it on Instagram like a year or two ago. It's a black patch and it just says, I could tell you, but then I'd have to kill you. These are actually verified patches of Skunk Works and Lockheed Martin and who knows what else, as far as MIC that are actually operating and probably, who knows to what level, producing these craft. And we can understand from the premise of the government, our government, for example, why we would want to keep that secret, because it's advanced military. When the SR-71 Blackbird came out, when did it come out? Like in 1984 or something like that? It has already been developed and was in testing 50 years prior to that. Everything that we think is so super advanced that pops out from the military-industrial complex turns out it was already in advanced stages of testing at least 40 to 50 years prior. That's not my opinion. That's an established fact. But all the scramjets and the pulse engine jets and all of this is explosion tech. Specifically, it's kinetic propulsion. This is Stone Age bashing stones together to create fire vis-a-vis hairy cavemen. You know, compared to field propulsion tech. Humanity can't evolve at any click until we actually embrace field propulsion tech. What would actually take out of our hands, too, is if the engine, the super high-powered engine that actually drives these craft, the enormous amount of power generated, were to hit civilian hands, which you couldn't put the genie back in the bottle again, then everything would be let loose. People would have the ability to generate their own power. They could give the middle finger to every government on earth. We wouldn't be beholden to nobody anymore. You know, they could have rule force over us, but without the ability to, you know, worry about batteries and power systems and power grid and oil and all, they lose control. There is no chance in hell these people want to lose control. Well, how do we keep, you know, from losing control? Well, we lock this down as tight as could be, but we blame the obvious evidences in countless videos upon aliens. We have no idea what these craft, because the Pentagon said that like a year and a half ago. We have no idea what these craft are. They're totally unexplainable by current technology. They're completely explainable. The right-hand rule craft, they're field propulsion tech craft with vectored acceleration due to high power condensation of power. You're actually creating, oh, by the way, incredibly important, when you actually have unlike polarity, and I've shown this in videos, you actually have like-on-like polarity, you'll actually create a null pressure void 90 degrees to the like-on-like polarity. So you actually can take all the force you can muster. You will see that hole develop 90 degrees to the like-on-like polarity. Super high energy, this is happening the same thing on these vectored acceleration craft. Of that, there's absolutely no doubt. Yeah, inverse polarity creates a low pressure vector 90 degrees to the polarities that are like-on-like, for example. That's just using hand pressure. You could actually see that whole form, because everything in nature is pressure mediation, which is no different than talking about the right-hand rule. Yeah, but the serious danger is keeping people in control. If the free energy device, which is nothing other than an arch form, Eric Dollard actually talks about this, and he is exactly correct. An AC generator is an arch form. Specifically out there is an arch form for free power generation. The only thing that's necessary is the introduction of a temporal variable. That's just all an AC generator does, which doesn't generate power at all. It conjures power, manifests power. Something I wanted to say important relative to manifestation of power. Because these are just arch forms, and they're not actually generating anything at all. But there's an incredibly important point on that. And this is what happens when you think about a million miles a second, about a few different topics. But this is an arch form also. What it is, I don't know. I've guessed about it many times, logically guessing, not radically guessing. But this is how they want to keep us control. To confess that these craft confess to free energy, arch form energy generation would cause total loss of control. And the perpetuated belief that these are alien tech also, too, keeps up the mystery that it's not the military-industrial complex or the shadow government that is building and testing and using these craft, but they are. But they certainly are. Anyway, I hope I shed a few points on this without going into boring details, and I hope you have a lovely weekend. If you ever want to contact me, my information is in the description below. Goodbye.